How do you turn $50,000 into $100 million in assets under management? Like, that is just mind blowing. Today, I'm super excited because we are breaking down how you can syndicate multifamily, how you can invest in luxury short-term rentals at massive scale, all with Valkere Investment Group. And so I'm interviewing today Ashton Levarek and Christopher Levarek, brothers who have done just this, coming up next. Welcome to the Cash Flow Happy Hour podcast. I'm your host, Josh Baldovino, and on this show, you can join us live as we interview investors and share how they are increasing their cash flow. So grab a drink and let's get into it. Ashton and Christopher, thanks for joining me. How you guys doing today?
Good,
Excellent.
man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me
here.
Man, this was... So for context for the audience, I found Ashton on TikTok and he's been dropping knowledge. And then all of a sudden, I just went on a rabbit hole a little bit of their investment group, all the assets they're investing in, and they are exactly where I want to be in a couple years later. So first off, congratulations on all of you guys' success.
Hey,
Thank you so much.
It's been fun.
For just quick context for the audience, because I've obviously seen too much on TikTok, give us a quick background for each of you and tell us a little bit about Valkyrie.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Joshua. Awesome to be here, by the way. I definitely appreciate this honor to be here. Haven't done too much live stuff, so I'm going to put on my best live show, I guess. Yeah. So my name's Ashton Levarek. I've been in the military since I was 18. Did the whole special operations thing, deploying, coming back for the last 21 years. I was getting ready to retire in 2018. I had about a year and a half left, and Chris and I kind of got together for different reasons, and we can kind of get into that. And for me, it was more like I wanted to create more passive income, so I didn't have to get a job after the military. So we started investing in real estate. But yeah, and it's been a heck of a ride since then, and I'm sure we'll get into that story, but that's kind of it in a nutshell: military to investing in real estate, to create passive income, and then creating this business because of it.
Nice.
So, yeah.
And then Chris, what about you?
Yeah, man, we've done this story so many times. I get which angle are we gonna say? But yeah. So I got out of high school, went to college, studied in Europe for about 2 years, joined the military 4 years as a firefighter. Got out of that, moved back to Arizona, started an IT career for about 12 years. I worked in corporate IT. And so very familiar with the W-2 story and investing in 401ks and that kind of thing. 2018, we decided to do real estate just because 401ks are kind of a joke, and went into investing in North Carolina, some duplexes. And that, like he said, we scaled up from there. It's been a lot of fun. It's all about partnerships. Every deal we did partnered. And so that's really fundamental to our success and where we call, our growth has come from. So been really cool, really, really fun. We're about a team of 10 people now, 3 based international, the rest are based in the United States. So family business, it's been cool.
Okay. I mean, that's family base is amazing. And just so it's not clickbait, I know that I put in 100 million title there. Just what does that look like? What is the portfolio mix?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think, I don't know. I don't know how people grasp that, but so essentially it started with 2 duplexes. So we bought 2 duplexes and then 2 more, and then a 5, and then a 13, and then a 16, 84, 120, 384, 92, and then a bunch of Airbnbs. So, and then and we could get into this too. I mean, we were working on a 208 unit apartment complex as well. And we can't really talk too much about that because it's still in the works. But yeah, so that's it. Like, that's how it went. It went fast, but it was very decisive. We knew where we wanted to go. We should go into all this. If you're looking to build a business, you got to know what you want. And that's kind of what it was at first for us. At first, it was just passive income, but then it really became intentional. like, well, how do we grow this? And like Christopher said, it was the partnership piece, it was the branding piece, and it was focusing on what we're good at and either hiring or partnering for the rest. So the portfolio as under management is made up of all those properties, obviously. Now, is that 100 million coming to our pocket every day or every month or every year? No, not necessarily, right? These are rental properties. These are short-term rentals. So we are managing through property management. And then the other piece is we actually manage our own Airbnbs, and we've set up the system with VAs and stuff to do that on our own. So it's been a natural progression, honestly. We didn't try to rush it. It was just, you wouldn't believe how much you're capable of when you stop trying to do everything yourself, is probably the best way to say it.
I like that a lot. And just for context, when did the real estate journey begin, and whose bright idea was it?
Yeah, it was 2018. August 2018 was our first acquisition. Started educating probably February 2018, as far as like listening to podcasts and books and all that stuff.
Okay. And so since then, you started with a couple of duplexes, long-term rentals, I'm assuming. What came first? Was it the short-term rentals or moving into some small multifamily?
So we only got into the
family,
the short-term rentals didn't happen till last winter, I think. Right? Yeah. That was the first one. Was last winter.
Yeah. And multifamily really had this. It still does. It has great economies of scale. It has the idea that if one door is empty, the other door is being rented, and someone's paying for your mortgage. Versus if you rent out a house, one person moves out, you're paying that mortgage for the month. So it had these great fundamentals, which we liked, and we can go into why we shifted or added to our existing portfolio with short terms. But yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, yeah, so how about let's go into, it sounds like the progression was a couple long-term rental duplexes. Then when did the upgrade or kind of bigger vision start to come into play then?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So when we started doing this, let's back up a bit. We had, it must have been like the summer of 2019. We'd done 3 or 4 deals at that point. We had just finished a 5-plex. I think we might have been moving into a 13 unit, and we'd partner with people on different ones, right? And we were able to retire both our wives from their jobs. So my wife was a teacher. Christopher, your wife was in hospitality for a large hotel chain. And we were able to retire them, and they work for the business. And Christopher's wife, who was managing a lot of the budgeting, she's like, look, why are we doing these smaller deals? We did this 13 unit. Why are we doing these smaller deals when the amount of work is the same, but the economies of scale are better on these bigger ones, right? And so we started looking into syndication, and Christopher and I are very competitive. We're brothers. It literally happened like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then it just snowballed into this, who could read the most books, watch the most podcasts, and underwrite the most deals. And we were trying to do the same thing, the same jobs in the business the whole time. But that's where that mind shift happened, was learning the economies of scale, the decreased risk profile, the increased returns, right? The better cash flow. And then the other piece to that, and when we did our first official syndication, which was on a 16 unit, that's when we learned that we don't need to do everything. And with a syndication, you can niche down and focus on what you're good at, what you like, and bring in other partners or hire out for the other pieces. So
gotcha.
I think that answers your question.
Yeah, no, totally. And maybe just to dive in just a little bit more. So you mentioned for our audience who's watching, there are some time-saving components. And for those who maybe haven't started to really dive into multifamily, why is it easier to go bigger than it is maybe off these single-family houses or duplexes?
Yeah. If you ever do any of the operation side of managing a property, you'll kind of figure that out. But let's say this, if you do a duplex and you are managing yourself, and maybe you even do the property management, or maybe outsource property management, if one door goes empty, that's great. You still have one of them paying some of the mortgage. So the idea and principle is there. But essentially, you are calling a contractor to that roof for the duplex. You are talking to the property manager for the duplex if you're hiring them, and then you're all the services and all the contractors and all the utilities is all going to that one property, and you're still having those calls all for those. Each one of those has a level of effort, right? Well, if you have a big apartment around 50 units, or even 100 units, the bigger the better. You're still making that one call, right, for that same property. It's still the same level of effort where you're going to call a contractor, but now the contractor is going to go and maybe service 15 units, and you're still spending that same amount of time on the phone, though. So what we're saying is that bigger property is going to generate more cash flow and more cash, but your level of management goes down because you're not calling out to, the 10 different contractors for one little duplex, whereas you could call 10 different contractors for a 50 unit. And it's the same level of effort. Additionally, too, when you get into the 50 plus unit, the 100 plus unit, there's a funny thing that happens, and that's that your partners get better. And typically it's because they have done smaller deals before, just like you, and they have scaled into larger deals. So guess what? They have more experience. And so you don't get those expenses and those costs of people messing up. And trust me, when you have a duplex and someone comes, cleans it up, or someone comes, does the renovations, they mess up. Like they'll do our first duplex, our contractor like did the flooring completely wrong and forgot to, he wasn't a flooring specialist or something. And so the flooring was popping up after a couple of years. And that's just because they were the cheapest thing we could find, and they weren't meant to do that. And they weren't a construction or what do they call foundation specialist, and didn't check the under the crawl space or something. But when you work with property managers that are doing 100 plus units, you're working with contract crews that are renovating 100 units. So they're renovating a unit every couple of weeks. Those guys have really good systems. They have teams, they have support. And so you don't lose a lot of those costs, those expenses due to mess ups. And so the bigger units cost less, it's less management, and you're working with more experienced people. It's just the way it is from operational side. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds wonderful, obviously, right? Because the units are generally the same. If you got 100 of the same thing, you're like, come on, guys, we just did 50 of these. They all look the same. Just keep pumping them out.
Yeah. That's a big component of it too, is you can streamline your process because you're repeating it over and over, and obviously they get better and better as they're doing it, versus if you have a duplex that's 1,500 square foot or a duplex that's 1,800 square foot, those are going to be different designs and attack plans, and now you're spending more effort trying to figure out what you're going to do per duplex. So
gotcha. Okay, so how about let's break down the first syndication deal. So you said there was a 5, there was a 13, and at that point it was Christopher, your wife, that was tugging on you and saying, hey, you add another 0 to that door count, I guess.
Yeah. And, often she was the one doing a lot of the finances and operations. And so that's where those people who are working in those areas will be like, hey, this isn't working out. I'm always on the phone for these little issues. Like this is not passive, or this is not, what I thought it'd be. So we did do the 16 unit. It was our first syndication. It was around a $300,000 raise. It was $1 million purchase. Imagine 16 units for $1 million. Like, there's deals out there. That was end of 2019, 2020. But really, like, the thing about that one was it was a screaming deal. We actually just sold that one. And the idea was, okay, let's get a really good property management team. And even at 16 unit, we found a killer team for that one. But we were still doing the turns. We were still doing the renovations. So it grew, like Ashton said. We started the syndication because we saw the benefits of private capital coming in, investors investing with us in these bigger deals, and now we get more advantages because there's 16 units in one location. But then we scaled up from there because we said, well, man, if we're having such success from going from 5 units to 16 units, well, let's go from 16 to 84. It's the same principle. And then let's partner with other syndicators as well that are maybe managing a piece of the asset management. So maybe they're managing the turns. Okay, man, that's even less that we have to do. But guess what? It was the same amount of capital, or, we raised capital. We did the same effort for it, but now we're doing less on the back end for operational side. So we started to see, and that's momentum, right? That's a snowball building. You start to see the advantages of partnerships and what you can really do as you scale and grow and start to depend on the experts in each their own realm. It's very powerful.
I like it. So can I pick into that first deal a little bit more?
Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely.
16 units, $1 million purchase. What market was this?
It was Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Okay, North Carolina. Yeah. And was that a market that you were already in, or is that a new market for you?
I was stationed there.
13 unit there. Yeah. So 13 unit we did with one private lender, or not private lender. We had one investor. And then the 16 unit was about 10 plus investors. Okay. It was a true syndication. Yeah.
Okay. And so how hard was that? If that was that you've done private money before for something, but never a true first syndication, how was that process? Like, was the capital raise hard?
Actually, no. I don't think the capital raise was that difficult. Maybe I don't remember it. I don't know. I don't remember it being difficult. Yeah.
I think the difficult part was the we spent like $15,000 on a EPM.
And maybe we should clarify what a syndication is, because I'm not sure that everybody understands that. So a syndication is essentially you're forming an LLC. You're getting a bunch of passive investors, people that have capital but no time or knowledge on how to invest in real estate, and they're investing passively in your deals. So they are a passive investor. They're a private or a silent partner, if you will, and they're getting a return every year. They're getting a K1 at the end of the year with tax deductions from the property, and then of course, they're sharing in the profit when you sell it. And but they don't have to do anything else. We like to call it mailbox money, right? And ultimately, the funny thing is like, everybody's always like, I want to get into syndication. I want to get into syndications. But do you really, or do you want just the passive income? Because I tell you, if you're putting syndications together, it's not passive. But the people that truly have it figured out are the ones that have figured out how to invest in these kind of deals and benefit from real estate and do all that passively. But that's what a syndication is. So you have the active investors, the general partners, and you have the limited partners who are the passive investors. So that's a syndication in a nutshell, but there's more detail that go into it and what type of syndication you can qualify for and all that sort of thing. But that's it in a nutshell. Yeah.
Gotcha. And so for each of you doing that first deal, as they're picking it apart, what would you say was the most difficult part or the biggest roadblock as you were implementing or, kind of doing your due diligence and setting up that first deal?
COVID.
Right, yeah, that's fair.
We closed on our first syndication in January of 2020, and COVID hit March or April, May, I think, and no one knew what to do. Right, like this was new to everybody. Luckily, we were working with a property manager who had been in that market for over 30 years, I think. He's an absolute rock star. His team's just a bunch of rock stars in there, in that market. And he probably saved that whole operation. So, and it's because he's a hard worker. He understands, no doesn't mean no. It just means I have to find another avenue. And so if you guys remember, there was a moratorium that came out and said, you can't evict people for not paying. And God bless our tenants, they're going through their stuff, that we're going through our stuff, right? But everybody's looking at the 5-minute target, what's going on right in front of them, and they don't care about anything else. And obviously they were trying to stay healthy and make their ends meet, and they were saying they couldn't pay rent. And so we were like, well, we can't evict them. So how do we pay our rent, right? Because we're paying a mortgage too. And actually he was able to find a way to do that. He was completing paperwork that, for these tenants. He would take it to them, they would sign it, and now we would get government funding to pay for their rent. Yeah.
God, I mean, well, I'm happy for you guys that you guys were able to find such a solid property manager who was able to do all of that. And then what about so you guys closed on that was like early 2020, January 2020. How big was the value add, or was there a value add component?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And all our projects are value add, and we do it for a reason. We build in that insulation. So when you buy at a price, if you add value, typically you can sell a little higher. And you're just adding a little bit of insulation in case the market does shrink a little bit. At least you might break even, or our worst case, right? So we always do value add. And I stress that, especially if you're newer, add value add, because you typically are going to mess up what the property is going to be worth anyway in a couple of years. It's very hard to predict what the market's going to be like in 2 years and where your property is going to sit. So it's always good to do value add. But we came in with really low renovations, even with all our experience, we hadn't done a lot of turns of apartments. And so to estimate what a unit would turn for, we were around 90,000 in renovations on a property that was $1 million. And, our short terms right now, we just spent 150,000 on a short term doing renovations. So totally different. It's a luxury property, but we didn't know as much as we knew. We thought, okay, 3,000 to 5,000 typical unit turn, right? And the units weren't too bad, but what happened though really was we didn't even get to turn all the units. By the time the market had shifted and 2021 had happened, 2021 was like this freak year for growth, both from rent growth and from net, value growth for properties. I don't know if you know that, but like if you look at any property in 2021, they jumped up like astronomically, right? There was 30% rent growth in Phoenix, Arizona, and like Tampa and Orlando. I mean, that's unheard of. Like 14 double digits, we're already hard enough, but 30%. So what that did for values was people were selling like crazy, and we sold too. We sold our 16 unit. Because the values are usually based on rent, right? And for commercial, right? That's what the lender's looking at. So if you go to the next seller or next buyer and you're like, hey, like we're renting at 30% plus of what we bought it for, just as an example, then you can sell it for something that justifies that kind of rent growth. So yeah, we had a really good time.
And that's a really cool concept. And we didn't get into this. We didn't actually learn it until we did this first deal. So the value add play in a single family is to improve the property and make it worth. You're finding less valuable properties because they need value add, and you're trying to bring them up to market value. With an apartment complex, it's called forced appreciation. We're forcing or accelerating the appreciation of the property by increasing the net operating income. And by net operating income, I'm just talking about the cash flow, right? So income versus minus expenses. And then you divide it by the cap rate, essentially. And that's how you get the value. So if I buy a 100-unit property and I increase rents by, let's say, $100, I've increased, or $100 per unit, for times 12 months, I've increased the value of that property over a couple million in just 12 months, right? So it's called forced appreciation for a reason. And that's why we like that value add piece. And that's where we really learned it, was on this property. So like Chris said, we bought it for, I think it was $940, right? Or $960. Sold it for 1.8, 1.9. So doubled the value in under 2 years. And this is not because of natural appreciation. This is because of value add. There was natural appreciation that played a part. Absolutely. But it was because we were able to raise rent. I think we raised rents $250 per unit.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So we hit our target rents within the first 6 months.
Yeah.
So we hadn't even
our 5-year target rents.
I think the rents were around 500 to 700, depending. Every tenant would have different lease, but because you take over existing leases. But our targets were like 800 in year 2, and within 6 months we were at 800, and then we're like, well, what the heck? And then a year later we were at 950, and we're like, well, we don't even need to do this because we've already proven the model. So if you sell at the idea of, hey, we have one lease at 950, the next buyer comes in, he's like, oh man, I can get all 15 at 950. He's all gung ho, so he buys at 1.9. And that's how you do it. You leave meat on the bone for the next guy to come in and do his plan or whatever.
Improve the property.
That's a lesson though. If you're going to do commercial, it's not like those shows where you go flip everything and then call the job done. It's actually better to flip half or under half the units and then come into the next buyer and go, hey, look what I did. All these units are really performing. They're $250 higher rents. You could do the same. You could be just like me. And so they buy the property and then they go make a lot of money. But it leaves them room to be creative and grow and, feel successful.
That we'll probably maybe end up as a clip because that was too perfect. And
That was good.
That's what I've learned about commercial as I've started to do a lot more digging into this, is that I don't have to worry about Sally's house down the street selling for X amount.
Yes.
But now you have a lot more control in terms of the business model, in terms of what you can do to the property to increase the value. And so that's why I'm pretty excited and bullish about getting into the space. I have one question here. And if anyone else who's watching live, if you have any questions for Ashton or Christopher, definitely put them in the comments. I will bring them up. So we have one here. We'll do maybe this question and we'll save a couple more for the end. But comments. Okay. So I have this one from David. So what's the pros and cons? Since you guys have done both, the pros and cons of participating in a syndication or private lending. Maybe if you can talk to any benefits to some of your LPs and or your private lenders of kind of what the main difference if someone was looking to be an LP or a private lender.
Yeah. So the pros are definitely mailbox money. It's passive income, right? And the cool thing about passive income is you can have unlimited streams of passive income, right? Whereas if you're doing something actively, you only have 24 hours in the day. You can only do so much, right, in one day to create capital or get a return on your time. So if you have capital to invest, I think private lending, participating in a syndication is a great way to create passive income because you get all the benefits as being a partner. But the cons are going to be, and it's not really a con. It's just, you have to know who you're working with, right? You're getting in bed, essentially. You're partnering with these people for the next 5 years, for however long the deal is going to be. So we look at it like this, because this is what we do. We partner with other people, other professionals, people that bring something to the table that we lack. We partner with them in markets that we like, on assets that we like. So we prove the team, right? We want to see a track record. We want to see experience. We want to see, we want to really resonate with these people, both on values, we want to align with them, like family values, work ethic, like all that, right? Before we ever partner with them. And then we want to align with them on what market they invest in. And then of course, what asset class. And then if you really want to get down to it, what strategy, right? Because you could be apartment complex, but they do brand new builds. We don't like the brand new build because there's a lot of risk in it. We like the value add. We like it to cash flow from day one, meaning there's already tenants in place. So I think there's those are the big ones for me, the pros and cons. Christopher, do you have any others cons? I mean, there's obviously risk here, right? There's risk with every investment, but I think education mitigates that risk. Knowing who you're working with, knowing your asset class, knowing your market.
That's a big part of it. It is the passive versus the active. A lot of people chase syndication, at least when they're want to do syndication for the passive income they're going to get. But really, the benefit is to the passive investors, because if they're investing with the right team, they get to be completely hands off and they're getting income. Whereas if you're active, you're talking with investors, you're raising capital, managing the asset, calling contractors, calling property managers. It is active work. So there are benefits, I guess. It depends. And I tell you to people too, do you want to start a business? Do you want to own a business? Then think about running a syndication, because it is a full-time business. And essentially, when you do a syndication, you are also in charge of, the steward of, a lot of people's capital for 5 years. So you better not change your mind. Like, you better not year 2 go, you know what, I really want to be a barber now. Syndication was cool. Because guess what? You're stuck in it. You still have to do it because you took all these people's capital and you're running a deal for the next 5 years. You can't just exit it. So it's a long-term commitment. And you got to know that if you're going to do it actively. And if you're passively, you same thing. You're in for 5 years, but at least you can go do your hobby or play some golf along the way.
And it might be worth mentioning that the structure of the syndication itself is actually set up to benefit the passive investor a lot better, at least initially, because most of these syndications are set up where there's a preferred return, right? And usually that preferred return starts from day one, so that's the cash flow, right? It's cash flowing from day one. People invest and they get that preferred return, and essentially the goal is to get it really high, right? You want a preferred return of usually around 6 to 8%. Then you usually see around 15 to 20% internal rate of return, which is basically the rate of return that you'll see over a 5-year hold, combining all the different returns from cash flow to taxes to sale price, all that stuff, right? But for the general partner, the person putting the deal together, you're actually seeing a lower cash flow for them in the beginning. So you're going to put all this work in as a general partner and you're not going to get much cash flow. And this is a great pivot for us in this conversation, because that's why we started getting into short-term rentals, because the cash flow is so good and we get to use them, right? Whereas a syndication, we don't get to use it. It's a ton of work.
Can't go stay at the apartment.
And there's very little cash flow from day one for the general partner. Now, the payoff at the end is great and the tax benefits are enormous. So you can see where I'm going with this. Yeah. We're looking for cash flow from STR, short-term rentals, and we're looking on ways to mitigate our taxable income, to decrease our taxable income to zero. Yes, I said it. We don't pay taxes because a lot of the depreciation on these large assets it allows us to write off all that income from other sources. So anyway, all that to say, yes, there's a lot of different ways. I oftentimes say this, being a passive investor is actually a lot better than being a active investor.
I like it. And maybe the one thing I would add to that too, just on the differences, and it seems like just on a generalized sense, right? There are so many different areas of syndications and even private money, which basically means private money, you can do whatever the heck you want with your money and people structure it whatever way. But I feel like in the most general sense, for a syndication, if you're participating in a syndication, most times you have part ownership of that deal. So you have an equity stake. On the private money side, it seems like most times you're having a debt stake in it. And so I guess it really depends on where you want to be in that mix.
Yes.
But I like it.
On the debt side, you can get out easier typically. Your term might be 12 months. We used to do some debt side to our deals, and we would give a 10% term for 12 months, and you can renew after 12 months. Otherwise, we just backfill the money with a new private lender. But it's very nice because you're not locked into a 5-year equity hold position.
But you don't get the tax benefits, but it's more liquid, essentially, right?
Yeah. A lot of pros and cons. Eventually, just have enough money so you can be in both, and you can figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I tell it. Just go make more money. What are you talking about? Then you don't have to worry about it. You can do both.
Okay. Well, Ashton's taking my job as the host, trying to switch topics on me there. Moving into short-term rentals. So one thing that I really liked and invited both of you onto the show is because not only is it the commercial multi that you are very actively in, but you are also actively in the short-term rental space. You kind of alluded to earlier, you moved into it. Was it because of cash flow, or really what was the pivot into short-term rentals?
Yeah, it was definitely cash flow. Syndication for the GP, you typically get paid an acquisition fee, or there's a couple fees that you can generate off the syndication deals. And we were getting acquisition fees, but to be honest, it wasn't justifying a 5-year commitment to a deal, right? So let's say you get a $50,000 acquisition fee for bringing something to the syndication. Well, that $50,000 is divided by 5 years now. So $10,000 a year, is that really something that you can build a business on? Or, maybe it depends how many people are in the business, depends how big your fees are.
You have to continually do deals then.
Exactly. So we looked at vacation rentals to generate cash flow in the interim until the syndications sell, just to allow us to grow. And, now we've scaled to about 10 people. It's definitely helps having that run rate, they call it, where you can hire people because your income's coming in. That's from cash flow. So it can help a business. So that's why we entered into vacation rentals. They are one of the highest cash flowing real estate assets out there. And, very much like a hospitality or hotel industry, when you can rent an asset by the night, you could do a lot more than if you rent it for a 12-month lease. So, and everybody's seeing this right now. That's why it's a hot topic. But so we entered into our first vacation rental in the Disney World area in Orlando, Florida, Kissimmee, Florida. And that was in 2021.
Okay. And so now, so you guys, a great market, by the way. And obviously, each of you, I think I saw you guys also have your own families, right?
Yes.
So obviously, if you can use it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done that already. So we have 3 vacation rentals in Sedona, Arizona as well. And we held our first company retreat. There was, I don't know how many kids was there. There was like 9 kids and like
quite a few.
5 different families, you know, and then other employees came as well. It was just a big retreat. We could sleep 16 at the one we had in Sedona. So just really cool to add that into the business. You can have a retreat, you can have a tax write-off, you know, a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's so many different possibilities, and it's way easier and more, you know, for my wife. I'm sure she doesn't want to stay at any of our long-term rentals in Columbus, but
I get it.
In the short-term rentals for sure. And so you guys are you guys raising or doing partnerships for the short-term rentals, or how are you structuring that, and what does that look like?
Yes. Yeah. So this is cool. So we bring in private investors. They're partners on the deal. They own equity in the property. And they actually get to use the property itself. They get 5 days free each year. They have to pay cleaning fees, of course, but they get to stay at the property 5 days each year. So they're making a return. They get to use it. So it's kind of, and honestly, it's funny because the returns are very competitive with our syndications. They're in some cases even better. So most syndications, you'll see like that 15 to 20% per year return. With the Airbnbs, we're looking at now 15 to 25%, right? So, and maybe even higher depending on what the market is doing and how you leverage all that. But yeah, so they do really well. But yeah, we usually have, and Christopher can talk to this a little bit more because he sets up a lot of the structure on these. We usually have 5, maybe 6 private investors, passive partners on this. And then there's our company, of course, and we manage everything.
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily call them passive. They are partners. And I say that for a reason. You really want to watch out when you're getting partners up to the 10, 12, 13. Now you're starting to, is it really a partnership, or is it more of are you selling securities? So the SEC might, if they're listening, question that kind of decision. So we're really careful on, we do annual meetings, we do monthly meetings to keep these partners engaged, and also for record, so that we are ensure these are equity partnerships into vacation rentals. But the idea is the same. A syndication, like, it gets often termed as just being commercial and multifamily, but the term syndication really just means partnership. It's coming together to do something you can't do alone. And there's a lot of our partners that, they perhaps don't know how to run a vacation rental, or they only have $100K and they want a nice beach property that's worth $1 million. Well, it's really hard to buy one with just $100K. And then also maybe they don't have the credit, or they don't want their loan. They don't want the loan management on their credit, that kind of thing. We do all the loan, we do all the lending. And so it's an advantage for those partners to come in with that kind of $100K. And then they can also do, well, I have a beach property in North Carolina, and I have one in Disney World, and I'm an owner on one in Sedona. So now I can go to 3 different places for $300K, versus if I took that same $300K and bought one nice luxury vacation rental, now I'm locked into that if I did it by myself. So the advantage to partnering on these is really cool for a lot of the people. I mean, to be honest, these sell out faster than our multifamily. Like, I don't know, we must have raised $2 million this year alone for vacation rentals, and they sell out within 2 weeks of opening. Yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, especially if you're going to throw in a perk like your family can use it for 5 days out of the year. I mean,
yeah, it's very attractive. But everybody gets K1s too. I mean, you can do a cost seg, which is a study that lets you get tax benefits from depreciation. And, if you can get that on $1 million property vacation rental, get some tax benefits to stay, and you can, enjoy the property. It's a win.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, vacation rentals, short-term rentals is a new kid on the block. I'd say maybe next to that is probably midterm rentals. I called it last year. That's kind of what everyone wants to pivot to. But
build to rent is getting popular right now. So that's the idea of, you're building properties just to rent them instead of sell them. And there's crazy government kickbacks for doing that. So it might be the new thing for commercial anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have some last selfish questions. And again, if you guys are watching this live and you have any questions and you want to ask them, put them in the comments because I can ask them. I see 10 of you on right now, so you can just say hi.
Hey guys.
I like it. Okay. So talking about raising money, and just as I'm wrapping my head, again, this is all just selfish at this point. As I think about a first bigger commercial deal that I want to do, I mean, where are you finding your LPs at?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. We get asked that a lot. Initially, it started with friends and family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said at the beginning, we were very intentional about what we were doing, and we realized if we wanted to continue in that path, going bigger and bigger, bringing in passive investors, a way to do it. So we went through this multiple times. How do we bring in passive investors? We read the books, we listened to the podcast, and it ultimately comes down to people need to know, they need to like, and they need to trust you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that? Brand awareness is probably one of the big ones. Networking, proven processes, a track record, obviously. So we started with friends and family. That branched out. We built a brand. We built a website. Christopher built an awesome website. If you're new and you're looking to do this, we're going to drop a couple books that were pivotal for us. Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller was absolutely pivotal. It's just about building a brand about what you're selling or who you are, and helping other people align with that, right? So your target market, right? So people align with us, other people that are family oriented, veterans tend to align with us, working class people that want to create that freedom in their life. Those kind of people align with what we're doing, what we're focused on. Additionally, we're heavy into the nonprofit space too. So a portion of every deal we do goes to our giving fund, and at the end of the year, we give that out to several different nonprofits of our choice, right? And we have a couple that are dear to our heart, and people align with that, right? Because we're making an impact, but we're also making, a profit. And so, but essentially that's what it comes down to. People have to know, like, and trust you, and to know you, they have to have your brand. Now, I will say, it is more easier today than it has ever been in the history of man to build your own brand. I mean, look at your brand. You have a brand, and people kind of miss this. I missed this for the first 38 years of my life. Is whatever I say on social media, that's my brand. If I'm talking about my cat, if I'm talking about how bad the president is, that's my brand, right? But now all of a sudden I'm talking about cash flow. I'm talking about returns. I'm talking about protecting my capital from taxes. I'm talking about, that becomes my brand. And so people reach out to you. They come to you. So you're building a brand where people come to you. Hey, what should I do with $50,000? Hey, how do I get my first rental? Hey, where should I put this? I had a guy come to me. He was working for Zoom, and he's like, I just made $3 million selling my stock from Zoom. What do I do with it? And I said, well, I can't help you if the money's in your account. I can't help you. But anyway, that's the thing. Like, you're helping other people, right? Now you're out there educating people through your brand, through social media. So you don't have to go build a website. You can actually just get very active on social media. And we've really doubled down on that piece. Christopher's been really good with the SEO for our business. He does a lot of the blog writing, of course, and then our website. So we're ranked really well on Google. There's a lot of things that go into it, but essentially, like, that's what you're doing. You want to build that trust. You want to build a brand that people trust. Because if you're out there cold calling people, I'm gonna tell you that's tough. Just calling people like, hey, I got this deal you want. We need $50,000. From 100 different people, like, that can be really tough. And, people, I don't know. I don't have that kind of, that's not a comfort thing for me. Like, I'm not like, I don't like doing that, cold calling people and asking them for money. And I'm sure people don't like receiving those calls either. So,
I mean, that's, if you can have a chance, and I say this all the time about social media, like, if you even look at your Instagram analytics, I'm sure if you did that, Ashton or Christopher, and you looked at what the average watch time is of someone watching your TikTok, like, you end up having years on there. That means people are watching you for years at a time on a random 40-second video you made. Like, that's just ridiculous when you compound it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What are you guys' quick takes on Instagram versus TikTok? A lot of people don't want to use TikTok, but I actually found you guys on TikTok.
Yeah, I think there's a
That's
different
in
crowd.
space.
Yeah, I think it is interesting, and I'm still learning. Like, I will say, like, I was 40 years old before I started actually doubling down on that social media piece, and so I'm still learning it. There's definitely an algorithm, and a lot of it has to do with consistency and quality of content, right? But it is a game changer. It is like the 10x multiplier for building your brand, certainly. And TikTok is a bit different because I think it's a different crowd. I think they're a younger crowd. I think it's more ad hoc. People are posting all sorts of different stuff on there, right? So you do have to double down on your niche and be consistent. I think Instagram has gotten maybe a little bit more professional about it, about their reels. Obviously, they're competing with TikTok. But there's a great book out there. I cannot remember the complete name. It's like How to Get to 1 Million Followers in 30 Days or something like that. And he talks about all of those, and he can talk about it a little bit better than I can. But it is interesting because, you can pay to get promoted on other people's stuff, and that increases the algorithm for you, that increases followers, or you can just do like 4 different videos a day, and it's time consuming, right? So you have to be dedicated. You have to know your niche. Have to know your avatar or the person you're targeting, and you have to. I think providing free content is a great way to increase trust, increase your brand awareness, obviously, and that is what it's all about. Now, people that are on there doing their the dances and stuff, and becoming TikTok famous and making money off of that and stuff, like, hats off to them. I mean, you see all these guys, they're making 8 figures a year because they've done some stuff on there, and it's a whole new economy.
What I would say too is, I do more LinkedIn. I'm on Bigger Pockets, and I write the blog. I like writing. I'm a writer. I don't do as much video, and I should do more video, but track it, right? So whether you're using any analytic, like Google Analytics, whether you're using Instagram, whatever they use, I don't even know. But make whatever your end result is, create that funnel, right? So if you want investor over here in your list, okay, well, Instagram's over here. How do I know that Instagram's going to my list, and how do they get there? How do they find the list? How do I get them on the list? So we have Zapier, a tool that tracks where people are coming from, and then it alerts us in Slack. Bing, bing. It says, this guy came from Instagram. They signed up for your club. And you're like, oh, cool. Not only is it super motivating, but we know, hey, Ashton put out this content on Instagram, and it directly translated to an investor that came in. They weren't just a person that liked and thumbed up. It was someone who came directly to the end of our funnel. So that, I think, is really how you want to track which platform you like the most. Is it achieving what you want it to achieve? And if it's simply for you to gain followership, that's okay. That could be a goal. But and that probably is easier to track. But how do you get it to where you want it to be, where, if you're building a syndication business, for example, that end user, that end investor is what you're really looking for.
That's a great point. Yeah.
I like that a lot. I mean, maybe we'll have a follow-up call, because I am very interested in integrating Zapier into my workflow. So I'm curious to see what the back end, how you guys use it someday. But no, I mean, I think one that's really good is that Ashton's obviously all over TikTok and on Instagram. And Christopher, you being on LinkedIn, which is another powerhouse platform that most people are sleeping on.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not even as good as I should be on there. I have about 2,700 followers, but it's like,
But here's the thing that I think is interesting. I read this in a sales book. It was it takes about on average around 16 touches, if you will, contacts, and that's them seeing your sign, seeing your video, your face, what you do, like seeing that 16 times before they buy your product, invest in your deal, whatever that is, visit your restaurant, whatever it is. So on average, it takes that. So social media is a great avenue to get those touches, to create those contacts, to, spread that. So, but yeah, you do have to be able to track it. Otherwise, how do you adjust? How do you shift fire? How do you focus? So Christopher's been amazing with that. He comes from that IT background. So I think if you wanted to do a whole podcast on how to automate, how to track, how to, know if stuff is working and what systems are the best, I think he's written several blogs on this topic alone. He'd be a great resource. Yeah.
Well, but it is cool. One of our things is shows where they came from. And like I said, when you see, okay, we had, like, I'm just looking right now, we had 13 people sign up in the last 30 days. Okay, that's cool. Well, then maybe we have 3 from Instagram, 5 from the internet, and the rest say other or something like that, or meetup. Okay, well, it's showing us that relationships and in-person things are actually even more powerful for what we're trying to do. Maybe Instagram is getting us partway there though. So really cool to track it like that. And it doesn't happen overnight and building all these systems on the back end, right? Like don't be in a rush to go get them all done because you'll like tear your hair out.
And they cost money.
And they cost money, yeah. But
yeah. No, I mean, that's great. I'm glad that you guys are able to track all that. I think as people are thinking about expectations of social media and you're just starting, what if you just found one partner? Like, would that be worth it to find one other person that you align with? And that's because you posted. And then as you grow and get better, then what if you're building an investor list? But starting at just the single, could I find someone else who has the same goal as me? Makes it really, really easy.
Yep.
100%.
Absolutely.
I have one last question for you guys as we close out. And this one's just to get to know you guys a little bit more. So it's the last call round, and I'll only do one question of the last call. Is what was the most memorable drink that you've had? Who was it with, and what made it so memorable?
Christopher, what do you think of the rum pineapple drink we made in Hawaii on the very first family business retreat?
That was awesome. Yeah. Fresh pineapple.
With like, it was like $100 bottle of rum, I think it was. And we were like, half of us were all sunburnt, and our wives were there. Our kids were, inside either watching a movie or whatever, but we were toasting the business. And
what were you celebrating? Was that like a first deal close? Was it a big deal close? What was it?
It was the first family retreat. I mean, Christopher's family is completely involved in this. My family's completely involved. He's retired from his IT job. Both our wives are retired. I still do some contracting for the business, but I'm retired essentially.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're
retired. We're working full time in our
right. But
yeah,
we retired from the W-2.
Exactly. Yeah. Like
I think.
Right now we're filming a vacation rental course. We're doing like fun stuff now, right? It's not, gosh, I remember a lot of the stuff I used to do as an IT tech, waking up in the middle of the night. So what he meant by the family retreat though, is like we had on our goal sheet to have a family retreat. It was, we wanted to do 2 of these at least a year where we get together because we did live in different states. And so this was one of the first times where we got everybody together and, I had a 3-year-old, or he's 4 now, but the kids are all together. And it was just like such a sweet thing that it all comes, at some point your goals all realized and you're like, man, you're actually moving forward. Sometimes when your head's down, you don't realize that you're actually making progress till you look up.
But I mean, that comes back to, kind of what I said at the beginning. We've been very intentional. We follow the traction model, but something they do in traction for businesses is you map out the next 5 to 10 years. Where do you want to be? And then you backtrack from there till you're getting these 90-day goals. So what do I want to do in the next 90 days, right? To meet my 1-year goal, to meet my 3-year, 5-year. So that's been very important for us. We're huge on the clarity and the focus, the commitment, and taking action every day. And, if you can get a group of people together and get clear about what you want and align that, man, you can move mountains.
No, you guys are clearly crushing it, having a lot of fun along the way. Actually, I have one follow-up question, and I feel like all of these are selfish questions, so I'll stop saying that now after this.
It's your show, man.
How did you get family involved? Like, what was that process like?
Yeah, that was tough.
Yeah, I don't quite know. Like at some point, when we first brought it up, I think Ashton's wife was like, no. Oh, heck no.
Yeah, she's like, nope, never. Yeah.
She didn't even want to do any of the real estate stuff. She's like, nope, I'm not doing property management or any of that, And then my wife, like, she was an HR director for the Hyatt. She was super successful. We were making good money. I was making a 6-figure salary. I was doing very well. It was like a lot of comfort. And I think, you start to see what the possibilities could be like. And you start to see that you appreciate the family time more than just you commuting to work 30 minutes each way and then spending 10 hours there. My wife used to spend 10, 12 hours at the hotel and then come home, and she's got little kids and stuff like that. And it just wasn't panning out. And so they hopped on board when they started to see the freedom it gave, the time freedom. Yeah. And then, it's been so cool developing it. We meet once a week, twice a week, more than that, but like 2 mandatory meetings for the family. One is for the company and one is for a leadership type meeting. And we have grown together just so much more because of that. Like, you think about how many times you talk to your brother or your mother or your sister, whatever it is. You maybe call them once every month or once every week if you're a very good family. But I wasn't like that. And really, now we're talking every week and we're doing like fun stuff, not just business. And so you have these ups, you have these downs. Like, I'll get super frustrated with Ashton because he's a different personality a lot of times. And we'll and then we'll hang up. But then the next week we're back on and we're talking again and we're laughing about and sharing family stories. And it grew on us, I guess. It's hard. I hear a lot of people say, I can't get my wife involved, or I can't get my significant other involved in my investing journey. And it's just like forming a partnership or finding an investor. Talk enough about what you're doing and like how fun it is and like what you're getting out of it. And I promise you, they'll start to get involved.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have obviously done it very, very well. I'm glad that they're involved now, regardless of whatever ups and downs and roller coasters I'm sure you guys have all went through, that we've all been through in that same journey process. I mean, makes a lot more fun, especially now if you're having family retreats around it.
Heck yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, let's wrap things up. Is there something that you're looking for? How can someone maybe add value to you?
Oh, man. We love working with other people. We love partnering with other people that are aligned with us. We love giving back. And I think, I don't know. Actually, you know what? So we're coming up on 4 years in this. And one of the goals we had discussed, and I'm going to throw this out there because I like to throw things out there and let the universe bring it back.
Yeah, bring it.
One of my biggest goals would be to set up a portfolio of short-term rentals and as a nonprofit for veterans to take them and their families for a retreat. And I've been looking at Costa Rica for a while. We've looked at Mexico even. So I don't know if somebody has experience setting up that. I'd be interested in talking to them because how to make that a profitable venture, but also able to be incorporated as a nonprofit would be really cool to set up. So yeah, that would be awesome.
Sweet. Chris, I'm not going to speak and assume that you have the same passion as him, but I mean, is there anything else you're looking for, Christopher?
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking to partner, like you said, whether it's if you're looking to invest passively or you're looking to learn or you're looking to join us actively in a deal, you have a deal. You can check out our website. You can see if you align with kind of who we are, from what we're talking here, and reach out. I mean, we have found so many different opportunities from people just reaching out. That 92 unit we did, it was a guy who reached out on LinkedIn. We formed a really great partnership and it's been awesome doing a deal with them. So always reach out if you think you can, you have something to give and you have an idea or you want to partner or, we're always happy to partner on those kind of things. So, and then we're always hiring for positions. So like, I can't tell you what we have open right now because it probably changes all the time. But if you are crushing it in the space and you feel like you can be a good asset to the team and, reach out, see if we can do something together.
I like it. I mean, again, congratulations, by the way, for those who are just tuning in and didn't maybe hear the very beginning, but they just closed on another short-term rental yesterday. Where was that one again? It was in North Carolina?
Surf City, North Carolina. Yeah, gorgeous. It's 200 feet from the beach. It's amazing.
So if you are interested in getting into some vacation rentals, but you want to do that as a group, clearly they're doing something great over there. So you can check them out. It's valkyriegroup.com.
Awesome.
And again, if you're just tuning in live, they broke down the whole story of how they went from $50K to $100 million under management. So it's been a blast. Some different nuances they shared, the ups and downs of engaging your family with it. But again, congratulations. And so for those who are watching, of course, if you enjoy this episode, make sure to like it, subscribe. If you have any additional comments or questions, you can still leave them in the comments down below, and I'll try and pass them along to Ashton and Christopher after this. But to my Valkyrie partners, thank you so much for jumping on the call with me.
Awesome. Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you for having us, Joshua.
And if you guys want to stay back for a second, I can do some last minute things with you. But for everybody else, I will catch you all on the next one. Bye, everybody.